Human health and disease, one of the important chapter in 11th CBSE biology. So in this video, without wasting time, very quickly we are going to revise some of the important points from this chapter for the NEET exam. So let us start with common infectious diseases in man. There are two bacterial diseases in our syllabus. First is typhoid, and here what you need to remember is the pathogen for typhoid is a bacteria called Salmonella typhi. Salmonella typhi is the pathogen which causes typhoid. And another important point what you have to remember here is the typhoid is detected by a diagnostic test called Widal test. Widal test is used for confirmation of typhoid. And one more point what you have to remember here is Mary Mellon, commonly called as Typhoid Mary, was the professional cook and she was the typhoid carrier. She was the typhoid carrier and she continuously spread the typhoid disease through her professional while preparing the food. The second bacterial disease is pneumonia, and here the alveoli of the lungs are infected because of this bacterial disease, which is caused by a bacteria called Streptococcus pneumoniae or Haemophilus influenza. Haemophilus influenza. Next, common cold. It's a viral disease caused by a virus called rhinovirus. It is caused by a rhinovirus that you have to remember for the exam. Next, malaria. Malaria is caused by a Plasmodium species, either Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium malariae, or Plasmodium falciparum. And what you have to remember here is Plasmodium falciparum is the most dangerous one. That's why it is considered as malignant Plasmodium, which is responsible for malignant malaria. And here in malaria, there is a mode of here in the mode of transmission. It is due to the bite of a female mosquito, female Anopheles mosquito, mosquito, which is going to act as a vector that is that is transmitting this pathogen Plasmodium. And here during this infection, there is a chemical called hemozoin release from the ruptured RBC, which is infected ruptured RBC, which is responsible for chill and fever that is reoccurring every 3 to 4 days. That is one of the major symptom of malaria. If you see the life cycle of Plasmodium, so when the mosquito bites to the human, it releases sporozoid, the mosquito carrying Plasmodium, which is causing malaria. It is going to release sporozoids. So the sporozoids are the parasites, infectious agents are going to infect the human, and these parasites after mosquito bites it reaches to the host liver, human liver through the blood, and there it is undergoing asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction in the liver cells causes the bursting of liver cells and release those products into the blood. And in the RBC, due to asexual reproduction, again there is a bursting of RBC and there is a release of a toxic substance called hemozoin, which is responsible for the chill and fever. Now in the RBC, sexual stage also we can observe, which leads to the formation of gametocytes. And when the female mosquito sucks the blood, those gametocytes enters into mosquito, where in the mosquito gut fertilization and development is going to occur, and mature infective stage sporozoids escaped from the intestine and migrates to the salivary glands of mosquito, and from the salivary glands those sporozoids are going to enter into the human when the mosquito bites another human. So in the life cycle of Plasmodium, we can find two hosts. One is mosquito, female Anopheles mosquito, another one is human. The two hosts are required for this Plasmodium. Next protozoan disease is amoebiasis. Amoebiasis or amoebic dysentery, and please remember here the infectious agent is Entamoeba histolytica. Entamoeba histolytica is the infectious pathogen for this amoebiasis. The helminth disease, first one is ascariasis. It is caused by a intestinal parasite called Ascaris lumbricoides, Ascaris lumbricoides. So that is very important. The second helminth disease is filariasis or elephantiasis. Filariasis or elephantiasis. It is caused by a filarial worm or Ucheria malai or Ucheria bronchofti. And here also there is a need of vector for the transmission into the human, and that is Culex mosquito. Culex mosquito will be act as a vector for the transmission of this pathogen Ucheria. Usually that is going to affect the lymphatic vessel. Next, fungal. In case of fungal diseases, ringworm we have in our syllabus. It is caused by a fungus called microsporum or trichophyton or epidermophyton, a fungal infection, that is ringworm. Now for prevention and control of diseases is we can basically do by personal hygiene, by keeping our body clean and drinking clean food and using clean food and water. And in case of public hygiene, we have to remember that proper disposal of waste and excreta we have to maintain, periodic cleaning and disinfection of water reservoirs, pools, cesspools and tanks, avoid contact with infected persons, and standard practices of hygiene in public catering, and control and eliminate vector, example mosquitoes. And here for the controlling the mosquitoes, because they are going to act as a vector in case of diseases like malaria, we can introduce introduce larvivorous fishes like Gambosia in ponds. They are going to clear the larva of mosquitoes in the stagnant water or in the water. Now, to maintain our immune system, we have two types of lymphoid organs: primary lymphoid organs and secondary lymphoid organs. They are going to play a very important role in maintaining our immune system. So the primary lymphoid organs includes the basically bone marrow and thymus. Bone marrow and thymus are the primary lymphoid organs where the lymphocytes are going to mature and differentiate. In case of secondary lymphoid organs, spleen and lymph nodes are very important. Secondary lymphoid organs where the matured lymphocytes from thymus and bone marrow, which are the primary lymphoid organs, they are going to migrate to these organs where they are going to proliferate. They are going to proliferate in the spleen and in lymph nodes. So the organs to which mature lymphocytes migrate from primary lymphoid organs interact with antigen and then proliferate to become effector cells, and those secondary lymphoid organs, spleen, lymph nodes, tonsils and pairs, patches, they are all the example for secondary lymphoid organs. So very important, we have to remember primary lymphoid organs are bone marrow and thymus, and these are the secondary lymphoid organs where lymphocytes are going to mature and proliferate further. Then along with that, you can also find MALT, means mucosa associated lymphoid tissue and appendix. These are also considered as a secondary lymphoid organ. So regarding spleen, what we have to remember here for the sake of exam is it in spleen you can find the lymphocytes and phagocytes, and they remove worn out RBCs and microorganisms from the blood. That's why the spleen is considered as a graveyard of red blood cells. And in case of fetus, spleen is the reservoir of erythrocytes. In case of fetus, spleen is considered as the reservoir of RBC. Then lymph node, another secondary lymphoid organ, lymph nodes. It's a part of lymphatic system. They are going to trap the infectious microorganisms and antigen, thereby protecting our body and act as a immune system part. Then very important, mucosa associated lymphoid tissue. They are present in the inner lining of respiratory, digestive and urogenital tract, and remember they constitute about 50% of lymphoid tissue. MALT constitute about 50% of the lymphoid tissue. Then if you come to the types of immunity, first of all, immunity means what? Ability of the body to fight with the infectious agent. There are two types of immunity we can find: innate and acquired. Innate means inborn, and acquired means adaptive immunity. Now, innate immunity here, very very important. In innate immunity, you have to remember that it is non-specific. Innate immunity is non-specific, and it is present at the time of birth itself, and they are going to act because of the presence of barrier. And we have four types of major barrier: physical barriers like skin, physiological barriers, cellular barriers, and cytokines. These are the barriers which plays a very important role in the innate immunity. So first barrier, physical barrier, include skin, and which is going to prevent the entry of any kind of foreign organism into our body. And because of the mucous coating in the inner lining of respiratory and gastrointestinal and urogenital tract, they are going to trap the infectious organ. So like this, the skin is going to act as a physical barrier. Then in case of cellular barriers, we have different types of cells, especially WBCs like neutrophils and PMLN, polymorphonuclear leukocytes, monocytes, natural killer cells, macrophages. They are all phagocytic in nature. They are going to engulf the infectious agent. Then in case of cytokine barrier, we have to remember that during virus infection, the infected cells are going to secrete interferons, especially the cytokines. A cytokine protein is going to release by the viral infected cell, that is called interferons, which prevent the viral infection to the neighboring cells. Now, in case of acquired immunity, primary and secondary immune responses are carried out by B cells, B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. Remember, B lymphocytes are going to produce antibodies. They fight with the pathogen. And T lymphocytes, they help the B cells to produce antibody. T lymphocytes helps the B cells to produce antibodies, that we have to remember. Now, very very important structure of antibody or immunoglobulin consists of two light chains and two heavy chains represented with the H2L2. There are total 5 types of antibodies or immunoglobulins: IgA, IgG, IgM, IgE and IgD. You can see the representation of antibody structure, and these are the 5 different types of immunoglobulins. Then in case of acquired immunity, it is the immunity in which antibodies are produced in a host body when the host is exposed to antigen. So basically, acquired immunity is a slow process. It's a slow process, and it can produce in 2 ways. One is natural active immunity. It is because of the natural infection by the infectious microbe. Second, artificial active immunity is because of the injecting microbes. It is developed by the injecting microbes deliberately during immunization, during vaccination. Then where we can find this artificial active immunity. So in acquired immunity, active immunity is basically responsible for the production of antibodies because of the exposure to the antigen. It produces in 2 ways. One is natural active immunity because of natural infection. Second, artificial active immunity because of immunization. In case of passive immunity, it's a ready-made antibody. Here, ready-made antibodies are directly given to the body. Given to the host. So it may be a natural passive immunity where antibodies like IgG from mother to placenta and placenta to fetus, it is going to transfer, and antibodies like IgA in colostrum to the infant, and artificial passive immunity in case of anti-tetanus serum. So these are the types of passive immunity. Now in case of immunization, now what is the meaning of immunization? Basically called as vaccination. So here the prepared vaccine, a preparation of vaccine, that is antigenic protein of pathogen or inactivated pathogen, is introduced into the body. It results in the development of antibody, and during actual infection, the antibodies neutralize the antigen. In this way, vaccination helps us to prevent from the diseases. So vaccines also generate memory B cells and T cells. One of the important point here, vaccination, when we give the vaccination, memory B cells and T cells are going to produce, and they are going to recognize the pathogen very quickly. Very quickly they are going to recognize the pathogen. Then very important, allergy. It's, you can see it's a exaggerated response of the immune system to some kind of antigens. They are called as allergens like mites in dust, pollens, animal dander, fur, etc. And here what you have to remember is, during allergy the antibodies produced are IgE are antibodies produced during allergy. This is very important. And that immunoglobulin IgE binds to the mast cells and responsible for the release of chemicals like histamine and serotonin that results in the allergic reaction. So asthma is very important example for the allergy. It's a respiratory disease, and basically for allergy treatment is given as antihistamine drugs, adrenaline and steroids. They are going to quickly reduce the allergic reactions. Now come to AIDS. It is caused by HIV virus. It is responsible for the deficiency of immune system in the patient. It's a syndrome, means it's a group of symptoms. So many different kinds of symptoms are going to arise in the infected person. It is caused by human immunodeficiency virus. And remember, HIV is a retrovirus because RNA is a genetic material. It's a retrovirus. Retrovirus means RNA is a genetic material. And first AIDS case is reported in America in 1981. In the last 25 years, around 25 million persons has lost their life because of this dangerous disease. Now how it is going to transmit? One is by sexual contact with the infected person, transfusion of contaminated blood and blood products, sharing of infected needles, and then from infected mother to her child through the placenta. And remember, AIDS is not going to transmit by physical touch or physical contacts, whereas in case of kissing, hugging, sharing food, then insect bite, toilet seats, bathing, sweat, because of this it is not going to transmit. Then if you see the life cycle of HIV virus, it is very important that HIV virus is a retrovirus because RNA is a genetic material. It is going to infect the animal cell. It is going to infect the animal cells. While infecting, it is transfer its genetic RNA into the host cell, where with the help of reverse transcriptase enzyme it converts to DNA, viral DNA. That viral DNA incorporate into the human genome and control the human genome to produce viral RNA, and that viral RNA produce viral proteins. They assemble and released as a new viruses and infects the neighboring cell. So in this way, the human cell are going to act as a factory to produce new HIV progeny. Basically, the infected cells, the factory of HIV are the T lymphocytes, T helper, T cells or T lymphocytes. They are going to attacked by the HIV, and those macrophages act as a HIV factory by producing HIV, new HIV viral particles. They are going to infect the healthy cells. Now HIV can be diagnosed by a test called ELISA, enzyme linked immunosorbent assay. Very important test you have to remember. In case of cancer, it is because of the uncontrolled rapid multiplication of cells. Two types of cancer we can find: benign tumor and malignant tumor. And remember, cancer cells they lost contact inhibition. They don't have any contact inhibition. Whereas in case of the first type, benign tumor, you can find that tumor is confined to that original place and it is not showing metastasis. It is causing little damage. But malignant tumor, it's also called as a neoplastic, or here neoplastic cells or tumor cells are growing very rapidly and they are showing metastasis also. They are spreading to the healthy part of our body also. That's why malignant tumor is very dangerous. Now cancer causing agents are physical, chemical or biological. Physical includes ionizing radiations. Chemical includes tobacco smoke, nicotine, caffeine, mustard gas. Biological includes oncogenic virus and cellular oncogenes. They are responsible for the carcinogens. Whereas the detections are diagnosis can be done by biopsy, where the suspected tissue is going to be taken out for histopathological studies, thereby they are going to diagnose the cancer. In case of leukemia, the biopsy and histopathological studies can be done by collecting the samples from the bone marrow. Whereas in the second one, cancer detection is by radiography, CT scanning, MRI scanning also can be used. And in case of diagnosis, some antibodies against the cancer antigens also used for molecular basis of diagnosis. Then in case of treatment, radiotherapy, chemotherapy, immunotherapy, surgery is based on the type of cancer. The method of treatment is going to be chosen, but most cancers are treated by combination of surgery, radiotherapy and chemotherapy. And in case of drugs, the commonly abused drugs are opioids, cannabinoids and coca alkaloids. So in case of opioids, what you have to remember here is example morphine, heroin and brown sugar. These examples you have to remember. And in case of opioids, you have to remember that morphine is extracted from poppy plant, and botanical name, scientific name is Papaver somniferum. Papaver somniferum, and it is also used as a sedative, painkiller and useful in surgery. Morphine is used in as a painkiller and used in surgery also. Whereas heroin called as smack, commonly called as smack or diacetyl morphine. You remember the common name diacetyl morphine. It is obtained by the acetylation of morphine. Heroin is obtained by acetylation of morphine, that you have to remember here. Then in case of cannabinoids are going to act on cannabinoid receptor present in the brain, and these cannabinoids are obtained from an inflorescence of plant called cannabis sativa or hemp plant. Cannabis sativa or hemp plant. Then here the flower tops, leaves and resins are used to produce marijuana, hashish, charas and ganja. They are going to affect a cardiovascular system. You can see the structure of skeletal structure of cannabinoid molecule. Then in case of coca alkaloids or cocaine, you have to remember that it is obtained from a coca plant called Erythroxylum coca, and it is going to this cocaine is going to interfere the transfer of neurotransmitter called dopamine. That dopamine neurotransmitter, its transport is going to interfere because of this coca alkaloids, and they are responsible for hallucination also. So they are going to extract from cocaine is extract from hallucinogenic plants like Atropa bellodoma and Datura. Here you can see the picture of Atropa bellodoma and Datura. From these plants it can be extracted. In case of alcohol and drug abuse, the prevention and control, how to do: avoid undue peer pressure, education and counseling, help from parents and peer, looking for danger signs, seeking professional and medical help such as psychologist, and de-addiction and rehabilitation program has to be done for such people who are abused of drug and alcohol. Prevention and control can be done by these methods.